Those people are going to argue for your loss, but it's zoned for that, so.
That's exactly right. Assessors.
It's just 4 o'clock.
Yeah, ready? Are you guys ready? Yeah. You ready, Mon? Yeah.
Precisely.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the meeting of the Georges River Local Planning Panel tonight. We are the panel who've been appointed by the Council to determine development applications, and in particular the development applications that are on the agenda tonight in accordance with the requirements of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act. My name is Adam Seaton. I'm the chair of the panel tonight. I have with me Juliet Grant to my left, Michael Levy to my right, and Cameron Jones, who's the community representative on the panel. Can I just indicate to you tonight that in accordance with the Act that this meeting is being recorded. There's an audio recording being made of the meeting, and it will be available on the Council's website as we're required to do under the legislation for these meetings. The way that we conduct the meeting is that we will hear from the people who have registered to speak tonight. There are some people in favour of the recommendations in the reports, and there are some who are against those recommendations that have been provided in the assessment report that is on the agenda. We'll hear from those against, who are objectors first in respect of each matter, and then hear from the applicant's representatives after that. Once you've made your submission, you'll come to the desk here. If you can try and limit your submission to about 3 minutes, but if you need a little longer and your submissions are on point, we can give you some extra time to make sure that we can understand your concerns. Once we've heard from all of the people who are registered to speak on each of the applications tonight, we will then adjourn the meeting and deliberate on each of the matters and make a decision, and our decision will be published on the Council's website tomorrow. You'll be able to see what that is in respect of each of the matters. Before we move on to hear submissions on the matters tonight, I ask if any panel member has any disclosure of interest to make in respect of any matter on the agenda tonight. No. Good, thank you. The order I'm going to deal with the matters tonight should be as per the agenda. So there's the development application for the demolition of existing structures and construction of 7-storey residential flat building containing 23 units and basement car parking at 1 to 3 John Street, Cogra Bay. On that matter, I have I have on a list 4 people who wanted to speak as objectors, but I only have 2 of them who've marked their names off at the moment. Can I just check who's here? Is David Waghorn here? No, thank you. Alicia Payer is here. Tasso Kondus, good, thank you. And George Nanos? I'm speaking on behalf. Okay, good, thank you. So they were all the people who are speaking as objectors, and then Mr. Andrew Robinson speaking on behalf of the applicant. Thank you. In respect to the second matter, which is the development application for 19 to 23 Empress Street, Hurstville, for a 4-storey residential flat building containing 26 units, I only have 1 speaker registered, and that's on behalf of the applicant, Mr. Apostolou. No, he's not here yet. Nobody's here for that matter. All right, thank you. That's fine, thank you. And then the last matter is the development application for the mixed-use 6-storey building at 325 to 329 Princess Highway, Carlton. At the moment, I don't have anybody registered to speak on that particular matter. All right, so the first... Oh, good, thank you. No, your matter's the second on the agenda, so thank you. So the first matter, 1 to 3 John Street, Cogra Bay. Ms. Payer, could I ask you to come forward first? Thank you. If you could just tell us your name and address, and then tell us your concerns.
Alicia Payer, 17 Merton Street, Cogra Bay. The street behind John Street is Brighton, and Merton is behind that. Right. And I'm closest to the Brighton side.
Thank you.
I was elected, I have to disclose, I was elected to the new council in September last year. This is my ward and my home of the last 46 years. The councillors were told of this DA after the exhibition period held over Christmas, and I'm outside of the notification radius, therefore I haven't made a submission.
Thank you.
The report gives a brief history of the new rezoning because it's extremely important. This DA is not what was ever planned for these blocks. The row of houses along the Princes Highway has been medium density for a long time, but this did not invite development. They remained unchanged because it's outside of the walk to work radius and everyone is car aligned. This section of the Princes Highway is a clearway and it has constant heavy truck movements into these arterial roads, including the distributor roads. The intersection of Park Road and the Princes Highway had a volume of traffic in excess of 70,000 cars per day in data collected in 2005, that's 13 years ago. The volume of traffic has increased, perhaps double. I can't find the recent data which should be coupled with these DAs. The recent LEP amendments called the New City Plan was not the result of strategic planning, nor any community consultation. Council officers admitted to the media at the time that spots chosen for rezoning were from suggestions made by real estate agents. When real estate agents began coercing the residents to sell, they told residents it was simply chosen because it will provide views to Cogra Bay. So to build along the highway, the Princes Highway, to get those views, we were all told the building blocks needed to be consolidated from front to back, so ingress and egress could be obtained from the streets behind, the only way possible for this many cars for two long rows of apartments. So the LEP proposal was for the rows of houses behind that front Waiuna Street and John Street to be rezoned with height and density increases, but the trade-off was that originally only half the house blocks in Waiuna and John Streets were increased, so development would be transitioned to the low density environment. After the exhibition, Cogra Council resolved to reduce the height and density of these blocks, and the public were emphatically informed that Cogra Council was going to prepare a specific DCP for this area to control the character and scale, and that specific DCP has not been made. Then the Minister reinstated the original height and density to the increased coverage, which overruled the community voice and our local planning. The first development proposal, this one, in isolation of the blocks facing the Princes Highway, undermines both the practical development of all the blocks and the incumbent transition to the low density setting. Many current residents did not want to leave and many options expired, but now all of the blocks have for sale signs on them, so there could be planning solutions available in the near future. It's essential that this development not be looked at in isolation, as there are DAs awaiting assessment all along the Princes Highway, and the cumulative traffic and parking impacts of this but all the R3 and B2 developments in this vicinity appears to be lacking. This is part of a large-scale change to our environment, and such poor planning will destroy both the existing and future amenity of this area. It's not in the public's interest, and the Council's recommendation of refusal is justified.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Just one very quick question. Sorry, Ms. Paynell, when you were saying that it's not what was expected, are your concerns around the height limit that's been set, or this particular development and how it varies from it?
The community and councillors resolved to lower it. It's simply too high here. The traffic is impossible now. It's all gridlock and a clear way. So in lowering it, they couldn't really get the density, and we were promised, like I said, we were promised the proper transition. This is going to set the new precedent, which is not what we were promised. And when you look at all of the low density around it, all the way to the bay, this does not fit in. This is not what we were expected. It's not what council planned. It's not what the community deserves better planning for this. So I would like what we were originally proposed, what was proposed originally to the public, what we were informed about. I'd like something more in line with that.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. I'd like to take a seat. Could I just inquire whether everybody can hear what's being said? Yeah, I'm going to ask the speaker. I'm actually going to move the chair around to this side so we can people can hear a little bit better, because we don't have any amplification equipment in this room at the moment. So I'll just make sure we can get as many people to hear as possible. So if you don't mind, we might just try and sit on this side and project our voices as much as possible. The second person registered to speak as an objector, Mr. Kondus, please. So if you could just tell us your name and address, Mr. Kondus, and then in a similar fashion, your concerns about the proposal.
So I'm representing myself, Tasso Kondus, of 14 John Street, as well as George and Nanos, who lives at number 8 John Street.
Thank you.
And so, as you're probably well aware, 8's directly opposite.
Yes.
14 is probably just down the road.
Yeah, okay.
So basically, we have sort of, we've looked at the agenda and we've seen what the council has come up with, which is basically for the application to be refused in accordance with a number of reasons. And I'm not here to go through every reason, but I'm here just to highlight some of the reasons why we think that development shouldn't go ahead. So instead of me speaking on behalf of George and myself, I think I might as well just do a combined one.
Yes.
But we're sort of both in favour of what we sort of be putting forward. So basically, as we're all aware that, following significant, I think, community consultation about the future of the area and the impacts of what such a development would do to John Street. Whilst the LEP initially was exhibited at a height of 21 metres, as a result of community consultation and the council, there was a draft being put in place that was reduced down to 9 metres at the frontage of John Street, extending to 21 metres after 1/3 of the property. So that was sort of what council put forward as a result of community consultation. Out comes the state government. State government basically have said, no, we're not going to listen to that, and we're going to go straight 21 metres. So that just goes to show that we as a community have been undermined, And whilst, we struggled hard and we fought hard to get that, we sort of, the state government overruled that. So it's a bit of a stab in the gut in relation to that. And that's just, as I said, total disregard for the concerns of the community. And this, what we believe, will destroy the whole low-rise, family-friendly offering that John Street has, along with other streets in the area. So just to highlight a couple of things in this report, which I think needs to really be considered is, in my opinion, the proposed development significantly exceeds the height limit. Height limit is 21 metres, we've gone to 24 metres. So that in itself is going to destroy the aesthetics, the ambience, the character of John Street, and it's going to cause a very large loss of privacy for the lower sort of residential structures on the opposite side, which includes both, myself and George. Once again, this height is going to sort of be, there's going to be an unacceptable transition from an R3 to an R2, and no doubt you guys have seen the site, walked the site, and it's quite clearly that there is just, even an insufficient setback. So the report goes into sort of insufficient setbacks from levels 4 upwards. And once again, that is just going to increase the bulk of the actual development and scale. So whilst, that's my 3 minutes.
That's fine, you can keep going. Yeah.
So once again, there's just excessive building mass that we're going to be sort of confronted with these insufficient setbacks, which have been identified in the report. A couple of things, common open space. So common open space, so the development control plan, the Cobler Development Control Plan clearly stipulates that you must have a minimum of 690 square metres. We've come up with 405 square metres, being 235 at the rear of the property and 172 on the roof. Going to the Cobler Development Control Plan, that clearly stipulates that rooftop terraces are strictly prohibited under multi-use developments. So whilst common open spaces, in accordance with the apartment design guidelines, can be put in place, it's quite clear that the Cobler Development Control Plan doesn't allow for these. So once again, communal space hasn't really been considered. The rear is, and we've talked about, the overshadowing impacts as a result of, such a development occurring. if we talk about, the colours and materials, looking at what's being proposed with the next development next door to that, once again, there is no sort of uniformity in anything, and that we've been able to see from what's on the actual websites. And balconies is another one. So there's been no provision for any form of screening for balconies from the documentation that we're able to access on the website. And once again, that's reinforced in the report. Increased traffic. Whilst, the council engineers are saying there will be no increase in traffic, yeah, if there is only one development, there will be no much of an increase. I think we said, it's going to be 11 vehicles per hour increase just with one development. What about all the other developments that are going to occur? What about the developments down in Wyona Street that are going to occur? There's been no consideration in relation to any of those developments and how that's going to impact traffic. A couple of other things. Whilst we have seen, and the report clearly stipulates what's been put up as the DA conditions, some of the DA reports, one, they haven't been accessible to the public. So I've made council aware of that. You click on the documents, they are corrupted. So that's been clearly identified. And whilst, Cogra City Council or Joyce River Council have identified that, they've also said various DA documents contains discrepancies, omissions, flawed recommendations and inaccuracies. That's what's in the report, So in all, I think the proposed development in its current form is not compatible with the current and local area in terms of bulk and scale. There is inconsistencies with the street appeal and the community of John Street. So basically, all I'm sort of here to say is we shouldn't be bending the guidelines just to suit developers. We really need to be considering the community concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? No. If you'd like to take a seat. Did Mr. Waghorn turn up? Oh, good. Thank you. Okay. Would you like to take a seat, Mr. Waghorn? If you could just tell us your name and address, please.
David Waghorn from number 5 John Street, Cogra Bay, immediately adjoining to the south. Apologies first for not arriving on time.
That's all right, no problem.
Traffic always catches me. Before I start my submission, I'd just like to preface two things. The first thing is we are at 5 John Street. It is the subject of a DA at 5 to 9 John Street, and we are under option. However, given that the option in this current economic climate is not a foregone conclusion and the DA has not been determined, this submission still should hold some weight. And secondly, we did buy into the R3 zone knowingly that it was a medium density zone, albeit with lower controls. So we do accept the fact that an RFB can be constructed on the site adjoining to us. However, what we are not accepting is the height of it and the lack of information, flawed recommendations and omissions in the documentation that was submitted. In general, my wife and I support the recommendation from staff. We do raise issue with the view loss assessment and how council staff came to a conclusion without visiting our property when we specifically objected to view loss. But that issue is not pressed given the recommendation and the fact that we are of the opinion that the clause 4.6 is not well founded and therefore by necessity should be refused. The assessment report correctly points out that the 4.6 submitted with the application does not assess the correct objectives, nor does it relate to the amended plans. Even if the applicants were to submit a corrected 4.6, I would submit to you that there is insufficient environmental planning grounds to sustain the 4.6 because of the amenity impact on our property. The non-compliant height will have an impact on our privacy and solar access, and under no circumstances can this be said to minimise the impacts on our property. The adverse impacts from the development, in part, can be directly attributed to the exceedance in the height control. As I previously touched on, there is a whole raft of supporting documentation which contains flawed recommendations, omissions, inaccuracies that were submitted with the original DA in 2016, raised by us in the original DA, and have seemed to have flown through to this current DA without correction or alteration. It is apparent in the report that staff also share these concerns, especially with the geotech report, survey, arborist report, lack of construction management plan and the lack of fine details relating to boundary fences and vehicular and pedestrian access. And it also seems clear to me that these issues were conveyed to the applicant, but they were advised they advised council that they did not intend to make any further design changes. So therefore I'd have to support the recommendation of refusal and ask for the panel to follow that recommendation, but assume this is not going to be the end of it, and we'll probably be talking about this again with the courts. That concludes my submission, and thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr.
Prepared
Wagner.
to take questions.
Any questions? No? Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
They're all the objectors speaking in relation to this application. So on behalf of the applicant, I have Mr. Robinson. You can just tell us your name and business address, please, Mr. Robinson.
Good afternoon, panel members. Andrew Robinson, consultant town planner. My business address is Unit 2 at 182 Old Canterbury Road, Summerhill.
Thank you. And if you, is there anything you wanted to address in relation to what the objectors have said, or in relation to the application and the recommendation itself?
I'd like to address something in relation to the recommendation.
Thank you. All right, you'd like to do that? Thank you.
So I suppose that's just
Yeah, that's fine. Good. Thanks. Thank you.
So the purpose of my presentation today is to request that the panel consider deferring determination of the application to allow an amended clause 4.6 request to be provided, together with any additional information that may address the matters that are raised in the recommended reasons for refusal. By way of background, when the application was first lodged in July last year, the proposed building presented a 7-storey facade to John Street and had a maximum height of 21.71 metres. So therefore it exceeded the 21 metre height limit by 710 millimetres. And while the majority of the building complied with the height limit, the height breach related to the lift overrun and a small section of the roof at the front of the building. And the application was considered by the design review panel in August 2017, and at that time the panel didn't support the scheme. A number of design changes were suggested by the panel members, one of which was to provide for some more communal open space at rooftop level. This was partly because the communal open space at ground level didn't quite satisfy the 25% required under the ADG, and secondly, it was due to privacy concerns in the relationship of the ground floor units adjacent to that communal open space. And the panel indicated that a minor breach to the height could be supported to provide access to the rooftop open space, which in the form of the lift overrun and fire stairs needed to access the roof. The applicant responded to this and in addition to a range of other design changes, amended the plans to provide additional communal open space on the rooftop. However, in order to provide access to the roof, the height of the lift overrun and the fire stairs has increased to 3 metres above the 21 metre height limit. And I think that obviously is pointed out by some of the objectors. Another concern raised by the panel at the August meeting was the need to provide a transition to the high density residential scale on the opposite side of John Street. And it was recommended that a simplified 4-storey massing with setbacks to the upper levels, together with the changes to the proposed materials and finishes, may assist in reducing this visual bulk. When the amended plans were referred back to the design review panel in March this year, the panel noted that the top 3 storeys had been set back from the boundaries on all sides, and was satisfied that the build form and scale provided an appropriate transition. In relation to the addition of the rooftop communal open space, the panel felt that it could be further improved by providing more intimate areas for use by small groups, as well as the addition of an enclosed area with a toilet and kitchenette. The panel also made some further design suggestions for minor design amendments, but noted that the application satisfied the SEP 65 design quality principles, and they supported the application subject to resolution of the minor design issues that they had raised. I also note that the panel recognised that due to the significant upzoning of the subject site and the adjoining properties on the northwestern side of John Street, the development of the scale will be visually intrusive in the short term until other sites in the block are also redeveloped. The applicant subsequently submitted a further set of amended plans to Council following the March Design Review Panel meeting and was satisfied that the panel's design issues had been addressed by those amendments. I'd like to point out that I hadn't been engaged by the applicant to provide any further planning input beyond attendance at the initial August 2017 Design Review Panel meeting. However, I acknowledge that in the absence of a clause 4.6 request that addresses the current height breach, the application can't be determined favourably. And so, as such, on behalf of the applicant, I'd like to request that the panel give consideration to deferring the application to allow an amended clause 4.6 and any other information to be submitted.
Thank you. Are there any questions? I'm sorry, if you'd like to...
One question, if I could. Having a look at the floor-to-floor levels of the building, it's 3 metres from floor to floor as you go up.
Yes.
Is it possible with that sort of a distance to actually be able to achieve a 2.7 metre ceiling height once you've got the slabs and services in there?
It might be a question for the architect, but I understand that it is generally 3 metres would be the standard residential floor-to-floor height.
Okay.
So I think that the 300 mil in between, as I understand it, does give sufficient space.
Is there any other questions? Sorry, I'll just take some... we'll just take Mr Robinson's responses at the moment.
Yeah, I noticed on the upper levels too, some of the amenity with the foyers and lack of natural light and ventilation. Is that something that you're looking to address as well? And also the orientation of the apartments?
That should be addressed, certainly.
We're looking in particular at levels 4, 5 and 6, which orient the bedrooms to the north and the living rooms to the south.
Right. Yeah, as I say, I hadn't had any further involvement until last week, but I'm sure that's something that the architect should have a look at.
Juliet?
Yeah, so if you did submit an amended clause 4.6, what kind of justification would you be pursuing?
Well, I think the principal justification is the amenities provided by accumulated space at rooftop level. I think generally accumulated space at ground level, you're going to have an adverse impact on some of the ground floor units, potentially units above. Putting the accumulated space at rooftop level recognises that you get full solar access. You have an opportunity to provide usable accumulated space areas that are going to have less of an impact on residents in the lower floor apartments. And I think that the design review, the ADG recognises that rooftop accumulated space is often quite a good solution to provide a usable area that gives a high level of amenity for users.
And so has there been consideration, and I think you've answered this because you said you haven't been involved, but you can achieve that better planning outcome with the rooftop communal open space if you were to lose a level and comply with the height limit. So I guess you would need to reconcile.
That's right.
How
And that's something that I have spoken to the applicant about, and obviously that's a call for the applicant rather than myself. So certainly that's something that we have discussed.
Are there any other questions? Mr Robinson, it was indicated in the report that's placed before us tonight by the assessing officer that the issues of concern have been discussed with the applicant and has advised that they do not intend to make any further design changes to address these issues of concern. Has there been a change of heart or something?
I don't actually agree with that statement at all. My understanding is that after each occasion that the design review panel looked at the design, amended plans were submitted. So I think an initial set was submitted after the August 27 meeting. A further set was submitted after the March 2018 design review panel meeting, where they raised some other sort of minor design suggestions. And the report, if I understand correctly, has been based on a third set of drawings, which were further amended. So I think the drawings before the panel tonight were the result of further design changes following the March 2018 design review panel.
Right, so the first time the applicant became aware that it needed a 4.6 request in relation to these amended plans was when?
What the applicant has said to me is that the council didn't request it. And I said, obviously, if I'd been involved, I would have told you needed it, but I wasn't. I hadn't been engaged to provide any further service at that point. So my understanding is that council didn't write to the applicant specifically requesting an amended 4.6.
And the applicant didn't know that they would have needed one for amended plans that had significantly different
the applicant
heights
was,
and
the applicant, I think, was of the view that because it was a design review panel request, they didn't need it. But they didn't take any advice, I suppose.
Okay. And they came to you when, did you say?
Last week.
Right. After this report or before?
Before the report.
So they knew there was...
I spoke to them on Friday and the report came out on Monday.
Right, and you told them then straight away they had an issue, or when you saw the report they had an issue?
Well, that's when I suggested that requesting a deferral might be an appropriate response, given that we were fairly sure that the recommendation
Right.
was going to be for refusal.
Okay. All right, well, we'll consider the matters you've put to us, and as I've indicated earlier on, we will hear from the people who are speaking on each of the matters tonight, and we'll make it adjourn the meeting and then make a decision and publish that decision on the website tomorrow in respect of each of the applications.
Thanks, Mr. Chair.
So thank you for your attendance. You're free to go. You're free to stay if you want to listen to other matters, but that's it's up to you. I'm going to move on to the next matter on the agenda tonight, which is the development application for the property at 19 to 23 Empress Street, Hurstville. It's described as a development for demolition of existing structures and construction of a 4-storey residential flat building containing 26 units and basement car parking. On that matter, I only have one person who wishes to speak registered, and that's Mr. Apostolou, who's here, which is good. If you'd like to come forward, Mr. Apostolou, and just take a seat. If you just formally confirm your name and business address for us, and then tell us what you wanted to in respect of the application.
My name is Jim Apostolou from Architecture and Building Works. Address is Suite 306, 7-9 Gibbons Street, Redfern.
Thank you. And is there anything you wanted to address in the report or the recommendation?
Nothing in particular. We're happy with the
Sorry, can I just stop for a moment? Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to speak, I'm happy for you to do that, but could I just ask you to leave the room so we can hear what's going on? Thank you.
It's recommended for approval, so we're happy with that, obviously, and we note that there was only the one objection, so it's really just to answer any queries that the panel had. But generally speaking, we feel that the proposal is a good fit for the site, being a corner block of land, three blocks to be amalgamated. In terms of the setbacks, we looked at the street setbacks, both on Empress and also Finney Street, so we went down and had a look at setbacks down Finney Street, and there was generally setbacks of 3 to 4 metres, so our proposal is 3 metres, felt it was a good fit. We obviously knew that we had an orientation of north towards Finney Street, so we tried best to increase the setbacks to that southern side where the townhouses are. We've got setbacks of 6 to 9 metres with a small area of 3 metres. So we tried to reduce any impact to those townhouses. In terms of the heights, the site falls from Empress Street to Cole Lane at the rear, and again we've tried to follow that topography by dropping the levels at the rear of the upper floor, as opposed to splitting the lobby, which simplified the planning, obviously, allowed for the basement to have easy access from Cole Lane without any major ramps down, and maintain the height limits for the site. But that's pretty much all I'd say. It's just, as mentioned, just happy to take any queries from the panel.
Thank you. Are there any questions from any panel members?
I was just going to ask you, the report recommends removal of those, of 2 bedrooms to unit G1 and 1, I think it is. Do you have any comments or views on that?
Yes, my view on that is, in terms of ADG, it notes that we do comply because we have a blank wall there, and we were quite aware of what we're doing there. So we looked at the neighbouring townhouse and looked at the offset of their setback versus our setback, and tried to push it as far towards the rear as possible, so that window 5 is not looking as much as possible directly onto that blank wall. So we feel that, although council suggests that there might be some impacts in bulk there, it is a small window, and whether you're looking left or right, from that window, I don't think the impact is that great, because you are looking generally onto that 6 metre setback, and as mentioned, there are areas within that setback which are greater than 9 metres. The other reason why we did it is that we tried to obviously follow the topography, so rather than putting that FSR on the top where that cumulative space is, we felt that there's less impact by putting it down here. because it has no overshadowing impact to the neighbours on the south. So we felt that this was, I guess, a better solution. Having the 3 bedders on the lower floors in terms of families might be better as well. So yes, very aware of it, and we would hope that the panel might see our view on this and keep those bedrooms as they are. It does keep the mix of 3-bedroom apartments as well, more consistent with the requirements.
Are there any other questions?
Yes, just one question. The design review panel had some recommendations around moving the glass line for bedrooms on units 3 and 4, which is just these areas here. Is there any comment from you about the implications of that?
The implication of that was that we were going to, I guess, increase our GFA beyond the limits of the council's requirements. So we maintain them as they are. In terms of pushing them out, sure, you may get that little niche where you could put a desk or something, but those bedrooms largely do comply with the size requirements for those secondary bedrooms. So we felt we would maintain them as they are.
Just asking the question in the context of the recommendation for the removal of these bedrooms, which will also reduce the gross floor area,
yes,
could well provide the opportunity to accommodate these. And I just want to know from a practical point of view whether or not that would cause any issues.
I think it's just really the mix. There's only three bedroom units on the development, so you'd be down to 2 units like that, so you'd be down to just 1 out of the 26. Really, from our view, pulling those windows out doesn't really provide any better amenity to those bedrooms. I'd say it's marginal as opposed to having 3 good 3-bedroom apartments for the development.
Any other questions? Cameron?
I note on your Cole Lane elevation there, so typical unit, say G2, along that western side, you've got very little windows, if any, and I mean, you've got bathrooms and laundries along external walls. I'm just not sure why you wouldn't take the opportunity to get some natural ventilation in those rooms.
And we should have, yes. So if it could somehow be conditioned that windows are added to those bathrooms, then I'd gladly take that opportunity.
Are there any other questions? I assume with those bedrooms we were just speaking of, with the window placed in the location it is, that it was to try and also achieve that ADG criteria of being able to see a window from any point.
Correct, yes. So as soon
in
as
the
you
room.
pull it out, you lose that.
You wouldn't see it, yeah, okay. All right, are there any other questions? No? Good, thank you for coming along.
Thank you.
There's no other speakers on that matter. So the last matter we have on the agenda tonight is the development application for the land at 325 to 329 Princess Highway, Carlton, which is demolition of the existing structures and construction of a 6-storey mixed-use development comprising 3 commercial tenancies, 45 residential units, basement car parking and landscaping, and occupation of Shop 3 as a veterinarian hospital. At this point, I don't have any people registered to speak in relation to that matter.
On the I came along just in case there were any objections, if there was any requirement to answer.
Well, I'll just ask, does any panel member have any question?
Yeah, I think we do. Yeah.
Yes.
So it looks like you've got a job to do, so if you could tell us your name and address, please.
Derek Rathby, architect, 57 Oak Street, Michael.
All right. So the panel members indicated they got some questions, so who wants to go first?
I'll go first then.
Thank you, Julie.
Query about how waste is managed in the development, both in terms of the use and positioning of the chutes for the residential units, but then also the waste transfer room at the back of Shop 1, how that waste is transferred into the bin room, the waste room at the front, and also what happens in the report talks about the private waste contractor coming perhaps fortnightly for any dead animals. Where are they stored in the meantime, and how are they removed from site. So 3 parts of that waste question.
That's all right. So in terms of the location, this particular plan we've used a very similar style in Waterloo, which has a high density area, but the actual location of the waste rooms, we've given them in close proximity, right on the boundary, close to the street, so any collection would be directly straight out of the rooms to the bin, so there's easy access there. So that is both the residential and the commercial waste.
So I can see one
that-
is quite straight out onto the street, but the one behind shop 1 is,
That is
you're then
only
through
there-
the arcade,
yeah,
through the
so-
foyer?
Yep, no, that is there purely as a from transfer from one side to that. So that one at the back there is purely for the residential purposes, it's not for commercial. The commercial is that we have there nominated, that is purely for identified for the commercial only. So those 2 rooms is for the residential, and one would be transferred from one to the other. So yes, that is managed by the nominated person on site, the manager on site.
And so
Because that essentially they both are served, so that's how the chutes work. So we have the chutes into those both areas, and so one is transferred. We have a compactor in one, so it is quite efficient. And so the main one, which is right directly off the street, can take quite a lot because that is where we have the compactor. So the actual one that's located up there, that back there, that is only really there as a more of a transfer room than anything else.
So the chute doesn't seem to align with that waste room behind shop 1 from the floors above. It looks like it's directly above. It's on section, just below section 3, but then the waste room is further down. Looks like the chute would drop and land on the ramp.
You sort of get it coming out there if you look at the red dot.
Yeah, there is. Yes, you are allowed to. We are allowed to bend them. In the past, currently with our site in Waterloo, we actually have 2 bends in it over 2 floors. So it is perfectly.
Would you get head high though over
Yeah.
that ramp?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, there is a high ceiling at the moment, which we have a high ceiling in that area for it to work.
And is it mixed waste only in the chute?
That I don't think I'm not quite sure if we've got a double chute. You're wondering whether we have a double.
Whether there's
one for
recycling as well.
Yeah.
No, the recycling. I think we normally have that the chute would be just for general waste only. Recycling is normally kept and then carried down.
So how would residents wanting to take their recycling out actually access the waste storage room?
I think I have to. Yes, I would have to check whether or not with that the waste report, whether or not that is the case.
It looks like one chute.
Yeah.
But in that case, or excess rubbish, how do residents access the...
So they would go
waste?
down and they would take the lift and take it down straight into the waste room.
So using the rear room, so residents wouldn't access the front waste room?
So the concern is, right, just to cut to the chase, is that to get to this waste room, if you've got to get to it as
You've
a
got to go
resident,
out.
you've got to go outside onto the footpath and then come back in.
Yeah, no, we've got both of them. It doesn't necessarily.
Doesn't
have to be
seem
the
ideal
whole-
to have to do that. And if this waste transfer room is for the residences, it's a long way away from some of them. They've got to go right down this corridor, carry their waste down there to get to this particular
Yeah,
one.
we can have a look at whether.
So I don't know whether there's an ability to have some door to get into this internally rather than having to go onto the street.
Yes, I see what you mean. There's no reason why we can't incorporate a door internally. We just have to make sure it's wheelchair accessible. That's fine.
The other, did that answer the 3 questions that you had, Juliet?
And then where is the waste animal products
Yeah.
stored in the 2 weeks between collection?
From what I understand, that's a very rare occurrence. See, at the moment, they have a private contractor. They are being relocated from they're currently there on site and they're relocated back into the building. And I can't imagine that they would be keeping dead carcasses there. Oh, okay. Sorry, Daniela worked on the project.
We're just trying to understand
Where would
where
the
that is
freezer
in the
be
floor
then?
plan. We couldn't see anywhere that you've got a storage area or a waste area within that, within the animal hospital. ISO, I assume stands for the isolation room, but we're not seeing where is that facility? Yeah.
Yes, I'm not aware of that function, to be honest. But I'm happy to provide that to the panel or to the assessing officer.
Yeah.
But as far as I'm aware, it's pretty standard practice and accepted in the industry how they do that. So I don't, from what I understand.
Yeah, there's no proposal to take the animals out and put them in the waste transfer room, for example, or in the.
It's completely. The idea is that they're completely separate to the rest of to the function of everything else. So
that's why we want to know, where do they go to, where they get picked up from, how do you get them to the waste?
Yeah, they've got their own. They have to. Yeah, I see what you mean. It's not.
Do they come out this front door, or do they come down the through the foyer?
Yeah, I would assume that they would have to go. That they would have to go through.
They have to come out. Well, if they don't come out the front door, they have to go out the
They've
foyer.
got to go down the
There's no other way
Two
out.
ways to get out of there, but
Yeah, we do have the access through the foyer area.
Yeah, so you're not clear on what the arrangements particularly are
Not for that
collection.
particular aspect.
Okay.
No.
All right, there are other questions?
Yeah, I've got a couple.
Thanks, Carl.
You had some BCA advice on this, did you?
Yes. Yeah.
Just quickly, on the ground floor, is this internal or external space running through here?
That we do have features along there, but that is the door gate is actually swinging the wrong way, but that is an egress pathway outside through there.
So you've got your stairs coming down to those walkways?
Yeah.
And then are you trying to identify with sort of two foyers, sort of right and left of the driveway there?
We do have it. We do have the primary entrance and the secondary entrance. Correct. Yes.
Okay. And just on the leading on from that garbage thing, and when you get up to the upper levels, it seems actually really quite convoluted to get to some of these entrances. You're walking up through open balcony areas. Is that due to a floor space ratio issue, or? Because to get to the garbage chute from the front or the eastern side of the building,
well, we have essentially it's treated as two separate wings. So one side does not go around to the other, and it's never been. It's designed to be that way.
I think Cameron's talking about that corridor there. So if you're in the wing that's closest to the secondary street, you come up the lift, you have to walk past a couple
Well, it's access on every level, so you don't have to come up a lift or down a lift. You just come outside of your apartment and go across along the corridor.
But to come up the lift to get to this apartment, you've walked past two
You've got to
units.
walk
Is that an
past,
open
yeah.
or closed
So-
walkway?
So as part of any fire engineered solution, it is fire rated up to 1500, and then above that, so that's the only part. So if there's one part which is on fire, it's fire rated, and so you can crawl past. So if that particular apartment is on fire, you can crawl underneath that. But so essentially, the door is fire rated, and you're allowed to have a window which is above that.
So is that a window, or is that a solid wall, or is that open above
We
the
do have
1500?
windows above 1500 there. Yeah.
so it's an
we do
open
have
balcony.
cross-
It's an open
It's an
walkway
open balcony, correct.
right? Okay. And some of your front doors are off the balconies. You sort of walk through the balcony space to get to the front door.
Only in a few. So yes, correct. Yep.
And again, was that to try and achieve positioning of the building to get the sunlight requirements under the ADG?
Well, we focused on, we wanted to maximise, rather than, because of the orientation, if we sandwiched the building together and had just an internal corridor, there would have been a strong focus of southern apartments. So we consciously tried here to separate the two. So there is going to be instances of circumstances like this because we've naturally pulled it apart. But yes, that is, we've tried to maximise the orientation to the north, so that there's a living space. The living space is facing north, and that living space has a balcony. So yes, so naturally from that, we've got an entrance that the best location for that entrance off the lobby space. Going into that apartment is via the balcony. One
Yeah.
thing led to another.
And just again, same as previous years, you've got bathrooms on external walls. Had you?
They've got windows, yep.
They
They've
have?
only got, yes, high, they've got high windows along that side, yes.
Okay.
So we've got corner ventilation on that side as well.
This will be shown on the plan, right?
Yep, they've got, I think, privacy screens is one of the requests by the council officer. I think we added screens on that side for, to ensure that there was privacy.
You're not showing up in the elevation.
Is that,
So these ones here, we've got windows all along.
No, that's those, they're bedrooms. We're talking about this ensuite through here, I think. That's what you're talking about, Cameron?
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Oh, no,
that's through
you're
here.
right, sorry.
Just-
There should be, yeah.
There's no window in that.
There should be.
There's no reason why you
Correct.
couldn't have a window.
There's
in
no
there.
reason why we
Yeah.
can't.
I suppose just again for these foyers here, that you might be able to get a bit more light
Just for the one.
ventilation in through these areas as well.
Sorry, which part?
These foyers here.
Yeah. What would you like? What do you consider?
Well, I'm just presuming that you'd need natural light and ventilation when you're to those spaces. Are you just relying on the doors, or would you? Is that for a fire reason, or?
At the moment, we've got yeah, we've got a separate. That's right. Yes, we have. I think we've wanted to extend the. We have isolated that area as a foyer to extend. Yes, to assist in terms of the distance to the area, so that the lift itself can have a. I think we've actually got it noted on there, a smoke curtain in case there is a fire.
Yeah, install smoke curtain to fire engineers and manufacturers detail. Okay.
so it has, is that, has to be...
So at least then it puts it within.
Well, maybe it must be a fire reason. Because I mean, are they fire doors on that foyer, or
We have shown it all as a solid.
so there's no natural light and
So there's
ventilation
no
for that?
natural ventilation for that
foyer.
foyer, correct.
Any other questions? Just, if you could explain to me, I'm looking at the north elevation, the element that is above the roof on that north elevation there appears to relate to either a lift or a riser. And I'm interested in what it is, first of all, and secondly,
Oh,
what
it's purely the lift, yeah.
what its RL is and why it needs to be.
The requirement for lifts of this nature is 4 metres from the ground level, so that's what we have. So if the RL for that roof terrace level is 3.39.5, then it is 4 metres above that.
It doesn't seem to match up with, see, when I have the plan open for the roof, it's showing me that location. I think that's this area here. It's showing, it says lift below, and then it's got an element here that
The riser,
that's
yeah.
the riser. Is one of those higher than the other, or and what are the RLs of those? I'm just
Yes, I think
I'm trying to understand whether there's a height exceedance in that area.
yeah. From memory, the exhausts, especially commercial exhausts, do need to be a metre above the lift.
Do you have any RLs on what they?
Only, well, yes.
I can scale it, but that's not
Yeah,
going to be.
no, that's all right.
It's not
The
going to be.
lift is essentially 4.2, so 200 mm for the slab, from the roof terrace level
Right.
for the lift, and the rise would be a metre above.
A metre above that. Yeah. So if I use the RLs that are on
That are
the
on-
side of the plan, can you give me then just what the RL would be to
So
the
so
top of the lift overrun? Yeah.
So if you add the 4.2
Yep.
on top of the 39.5.
Okay. I can do those maths. Yeah. And then I'll add 5.2. 5.2 to the 39.5 for the riser. Yeah. Do you understand there to be a height exceedance in that location or not?
I know that we identified it in the sections. The worst case was...
I didn't send out a
because
section
of
through,
these-
yeah, through that
because
part
the
there.
slope was- The worst case was over in this area.
So this is your height, your maximum height line through this section here is not the location where I need it, but through here, that's the element there that I'm looking at.
Yeah, so if we're talking about adding that from 39.5,
Mm.
adding the 40, so it would be 43.7, I think it was. So it would be very close to the height limit. It would be close or right on.
Yeah, because that section is,
So
it's
it
not
should
quite,
actually
it's not
should be
quite
still
where the...
underneath, essentially.
Okay. Any other questions?
We've got a 4 point.
Well, there is a 4.6 request, yeah. I just wonder
Which
whether
was updated to the changes.
Yeah, whether it's dealing with that particular element there, that's all.
Mm.
I know it's dealing with this area through here,
Mm.
but it seems that there is an exceedance on that element there. Is that right, or?
It would,
Yeah.
possibly, yeah, possibly, yeah.
Yeah, I just need to check that. That's all right, are there any other questions? No. Good, thank you for coming along tonight and answering our questions.
Sorry that I didn't register.
That's all right, no, it's helpful, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our public part of our meeting. Now we're going to adjourn and deliberate on the matters, and our decisions will be made available on the council's website tomorrow. Thank you for attending, and you're welcome to come to any other meeting. Thank you.
It does show.
Very, very efficient, very quick. Okay,
Thank you.
let's go on.
It does show.
It is good, okay, that's all I wanted to make sure.
Yep.